Well, folks, we have some breaking news out of the state of Nebraska. Dan Osborne, the former union leader and independent candidate in the 2024 Senate election, has officially launched his bid to challenge incumbent Senator Pete Ricketts in the 2026 Senate elections. Now, this announcement marks Osborne's second run for the U.S. Senate after really a surprisingly strong performance in the 2024 Senate election against, at that time, incumbent Republican Senator Deb Fischer, where he secured roughly 47% of the vote. 47% of the vote at the same time in the special election when Pete Ricketts, his opponent, only secured 37% of the point. Independent Dan Osborne ran about 10 points ahead of the other Democrat that was running in that special election. Now, the 2026 Senate election in Nebraska is shaping up to be a high-stakes battle. We know 2024 was unusually competitive. It was the closest Senate election in Nebraska, really in the last 100 years. It was the closest election that has been held in Nebraska in almost 100 years. The last time Nebraska elected an independent senator was 1936. 1936! And Osborne still had a better margin than that candidate who won in 1936 had. But today we are going to be breaking down this breaking news along with Osborne's campaign launch, his platform, and some other relevant information for this. Now, who is Dan Osborne? Osborne is a 50-year-old steam fitter and former labor union leader from Omaha. He ran as an independent in 2024 and nearly unseated Deb Fischer came within 7 points of beating her. Now he gained a lot of traction with a populist platform, blending conservative stances on border security, gun rights, with calls for campaign finance reform and workers' rights. So someone who's definitely right in the middle, kind of pulls ideas from each side of the aisle. Now, he rejected endorsements from the Nebraska Democrat Party, insisting he will not caucus with either party if elected. He will be a true independent. Now, in 2024, he outperformed Kamala Harris pretty well. Osborne got 47% of the vote at the same time when Kamala Harris in the state of Nebraska, at large, only got 38% of the vote. He ran ahead of her by what? Like 10 points. He raised nearly $15 million, showing that he can compete with big money campaigns, though he will face an even tougher challenge against Pete Ricketts. He has deep pockets. We know he comes from a extremely wealthy family. His family's trust owned the Chicago Cubs, I believe, or they still do. We know he's got a lot of money backing him. Pete Ricketts, a lot of money backing him, deep pockets. And his campaign resonated with working class voters. We know that. Now, Osborne announced his bid today, just an hour ago, framing it as a fight against billionaires buying Senate seats. I don't want to run a campaign ad for him, but just take a listen for a little bit.
Billionaire politician Pete Ricketts votes for historic tax cut for 1%.
This garbage bill just hurts work.
Many hoping mechanic Dan Osborne will run. Polls show a close race.
There's a lot of rich guys in Washington like Pete Ricketts, but not a lot with hands like these. We fix their cars, grow their food, fight their wars. Politicians like Senator Pete Ricketts are the problem. His dad worked for a living. Petey? He got his money the fast way, his billionaire family. For 20 years, he's been trying to buy power in Nebraska, throwing big money against Republicans, Democrats, independents, anyone who's not willing.
You can clearly see this is going to be a campaign. It's going to be a class campaign, if we're being honest. A class campaign. It's not about Democrat versus Republican independent. It's not about the policy. They're going on the, it's the working class versus the billionaires versus the rich, which is kind of insane that he would even say this, because we do know that if the one big beautiful bill did not pass, by the end of 2025, it would be the single largest tax increase for the middle class, for the working class, that we have seen in decades. It would be the largest we've seen in peacetime, probably ever. It would be a tax increase. So don't give me this bullshit that this was just a tax or a tax break for the working class. You tell me this, when 60% of Americans pay virtually no net taxes after you account for any social services they get. How are you supposed to give someone a tax break who does not pay taxes? You explain that one to me. You explain that one to me, Dan Osborne. Hopefully he just gets smoked in this upcoming election. I hope he does. I really do. But he's doubling down on this outsider status, contrasting his, blue-collar roots with Pete Ricketts' wealth and political dynasty. He's already mobilized. You can see his online or his campaign through actblue.com. It's already up and running. He is already raising money for the 2026 Senate campaign in Nebraska. Now, on the other side, who is Pete Ricketts? Pete Ricketts is a former two-term Nebraska governor from 2015 to 2023 and is son of the TD Ameritrade founder Joe Ricketts with a family net worth of roughly $4 billion. He was appointed to the Senate in 2023 after Ben Sasse resigned and then won a special election in 2024 by roughly 25 percentage points. Like we said, it was an increasingly competitive election for Deb Fischer, not very competitive for Pete Ricketts. Now, he's known for his conservative record, lowering taxes, supporting pro-life policies, and advocating for stronger border security. He's backed by President Donald Trump, who endorsed him in April of 2025, praising his stance on the border, calling Dan Osborne a radical left open border extremist. Ricketts is a prolific fundraiser with access to a family wealth, including ownership of the Chicago Cubs, giving him a serious financial edge in this campaign, an edge that even in 2024, Deb Fischer did not have the financial edge that Pete Ricketts will have in 2026, but he is not without vulnerabilities. Critics, including Osborne, argue that Ricketts' wealth disconnects him from everyday Nebraskans, especially on issues like rising costs and economic struggles. Now, the reality is he won a big election by 25 points. Just 7-8 months ago. Maybe 9 months ago now. Do I expect it's going to be that big of a margin in 2026? No, not necessarily. I think he's going to win big. I think he'll win by at least 15 percentage points going into 2026. I do. But ultimately, I don't think this is going to be a competitive seat, yes, but it's going to be competitive relative that he won by 25 points in 2024. Like, that's the reality. Previously, I had already accounted for the fact that Dan Osborne was most likely going to run in this race, so we already have this as a likely Nebraska or a likely Republican state in Nebraska. Probably, depending on how this all turns out, I could 100% see making the move back to a likely Republican seat. We're keeping it at a lean Republican seat as of right now. Now, Ricketts supported Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill and has reportedly drawn scrutiny for tax breaks that some claim favor the wealthy over working families. It's not like we gave seniors the largest tax deduction when it comes to Social Security benefits. We're giving, talk about union workers, trade workers, no taxes on overtimes. Talk about service workers, no taxes on tips. How does that not play into what working class voters want? No tax on overtime. Dan Osborne maybe had put a decent campaign together in 2024, but he's a joke of a campaign at this point. It really is. This guy is a left-wing nut job. He wants to say that he's a, independent, but I just don't buy it. I don't buy it. I'm sorry. It's a bunch of BS, if we're being honest. But Nebraska leans heavily to the Republican Party, with a conservative electorate that supported Trump in 2020 and 2024 by big margins. Supported Trump by 20 points in 24, supported him by 19 points in 2020. And Osborne's 2024 performance showed he can appeal to swing voters and disaffected Republican voters, but rural areas, especially in the 3rd Congressional District, will remain a challenge for him. Now, anger over federal policies, including cuts to rural communities, could create an opening for Osborne if he capitalized on this populist content. But the reality is he's going to have a hard time with that. The Big Beautiful Bill put aside $50 billion for rural hospitals that would be affected by some of these Medicaid cuts that are going to occur. I think Democrats are going to fall on their face if they try. They can run against the One Big Beautiful Bill. They can't run against the policy provisions within inside of the One Big Beautiful Bill. Now, this is going to be a tough election. Don't get me wrong. Osborne put up a very good race or a good campaign in 2024, and I expect he will do something similar in 2026. He most likely will focus on what he deems fair wages, right to repair laws, reducing money in politics while maintaining what he considers key conservative positions to broaden his appeal. He even has said that he's open to financial support from figures like Elon Musk, but would reject joining Musk's America Party, saying that he wants to stay true to his independent brand. Okay, fair. Now, right now, the 2026 Senate map favors Republicans, but Democrats see Osborne's bid as a chance to make gains in a tough cycle. If Osborne wins as an independent who doesn't caucus with Democrats, it could shake up the Senate dynamics and inspire other outsider campaigns. We know there are two current independents in the Senate, but they both caucus with the Democrat Party. It would be different to see this anti-establishment message sent to D.C. doesn't caucus with either party. But I don't think he's going to win, if we're being 100% honest. I just don't think he's going to win. Dan Osborne's launch against Pete Ricketts sets up really a big election in 2026 in what historically is not a competitive state. But the big question, will this mechanic, will this union leader be able to topple a billionaire? Or will Ricketts' conservative record and Trump's backing hold firm in 2026? But we are going to be following this race every step of the way. We wanted to bring it to that it is breaking news. Dan Osborne is running for the Senate in Nebraska in 2026. Now, if you like the content we put out, drop down below, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you never miss another video from us again in the future. And folks, we will catch you next time.